newspapers this morning. Joanna Williams joins us, and former advisor to Tony Blair, John McDermott. Thanks very much for coming back.
Strikes, discontent, misconduct, chaos on the list. Wow. Good morning.
Well, hopefully I'm not the living embodiment of all of those things, but I'm going to kick off by talking about the strikes. This is the front page of the Daily Express, and Liz Truss promising new laws to smash the strikes. Now, I'm definitely somebody who, unfortunately, has been very much affected by the strikes. Normally, I would come to GBNEWS on the train. I live in Canterbury, so it's a fairly...
Southeastern service.
Yes, all called off yesterday, so I had to drive
the trains are back today, but of course they're all in the wrong place, so they're still not running.
So I had to come last night. I've had to drive through London, which, as somebody who doesn't drive through London, is quite a terrifying experience at the best of times. And when everybody else...
Deptford, New Cross, well done.
Awful. Got to try and obviously get my way back today. But having said all of this, do you know what? I support the strikers.
You do?
I do. Despite all of that chaos that they've put me through, I still support them. And I actually think that Liz Truss is possibly not tapping into the mood of the nation here. I think they've got more support than she's giving them credit for. I think good luck to them, because we've got this huge cost of living crisis. Everything's going up. Why shouldn't people be able to get together and insist upon having high wages?
There are those in the private sector who say they haven't got the muscle of the unions representing them, and they're being disadvantaged by not being able to travel, saying, actually, I wouldn't mind an 8% deal over 2 years and a guarantee of no compulsory redundancy. Why hasn't that been put to the membership of the unions, is what they
Well, yeah, I think certainly we could look into the negotiation process, and I really hope everything's working behind the scenes as well as possible.
Is it?
Well, we can't really know, and I think the problem is when I think some commentators perhaps are pretending to know a little bit more than we actually do. I think we've just got to trust and hope that negotiations are taking place. But I still think it is really important to support these people, and I think that actually if the rail strikers win this deal, I think it would be best for everyone in the long run. I think it will lead to more pay rises for people who are not...
Can we afford that, though, and what that's going to do to inflation?
Can we afford not to? I don't think many people in this country will be able to afford to heat their houses, pay their water bills without a pay rise.
John, it's a summer of discontent, according to the Daily Mail.
Yeah, this is the other side of the story. Yes, of course, unions have the right to strike, and the rail unions in the private sector, they're negotiating with employers, and basically there's got to be a deal on lowering the costs of the staff, or it'll all go on the rail fares. But Mick Lynch is now kind of turning this into a political campaign. No end to the rail chaos. Well, the truth is, there's got to be a deal, because his workers need to work, travellers need to travel. The rail industry, which was bailed out, all the workers got paid furlough when there was virtually nobody working, and nobody going to work on trains because of the pandemic and the lockdown. So it's really worrying to see the idea that, in a way, I agree with China as well. Liz Truss is not in line with the public wanting to smash unions.
Yeah, but she's speaking to the Tory.
That's true. But the danger is that Mick Lynch is exactly the kind of union leader she wants. They both need each other. She wants somebody to fight, and he wants a prime minister to fight. But it's not about the travelling public. It's not actually about the cost of living. It's not about the future of the rail industry. It's not about decarbonising our transport infrastructure. It's just about conflict. And I think one of the issues that we get across all the papers is how much conflict there is at the moment.
Yes.
I don't think that is good for the country.
It's very upsetting, isn't it? It really is unnerving.
Yeah, and is that because there is this political vacuum as well? Because we're still not quite sure who should be breaking this deadlock. Is it the rail companies and the unions directly, or does it need Grant Shapps, who was on the programme a little later, stepping in and saying, right, I'm going to knock heads together and get this sorted?
So look, Shapps isn't the employer. So it's a privatised industry. I think government should stick out of private conflicts. I think it's between the employer and the employee. I think that goes back to my point. Mick Lynch has to make a deal. Every union leader in the country knows in the end there's got to be a deal. You don't get everything you want, but the employer doesn't get everything they want. And also Mick Lynch knows just how inefficient bits of the staffing practices are. and he's got to sell that for something. So he's trying to sell it for high price, but they need to settle it. And grant chaps should stick to making silly announcements like driverless cars.
Yes, well, we'll be asking him about that as well later. Joanna, on the front page of the Times, we hear that in order to solve a real staffing crisis, particularly in care homes, for instance, we're going to actively pursue people abroad. We're actually going to recruit from abroad.
Yeah, we're looking at bringing thousands, it talks about in the paper, of people from India and the Philippines over to work in UK care homes this winter. It's talking about 160,000 vacancies. The thing is that clearly there is a huge crisis in our care sector, but this has been going on, it seems to me, for years, if not building up to this for over a decade. And this seems to be a very short-term solution to bring over all these people. We are paying more money as well now. I know it's not immediately gone into the care sector, this percentage increase in national insurance. I know it's gone to the NHS at first, but it suddenly feels as if it's coming out of our pockets.
But are we looking at India and the Philippines and not the EU, because the wage rates are still actually so low that people from Europe won't want to come in and work for that?
Well, this is the problem, isn't it? And I think it's not so much about not wanting people from the EU or people from the EU not wanting to come, but more to the point, British people. We've got British people, presumably, who, if it was a well-paid job where you were well-respected,
But it doesn't seem to be, does it?
Exactly. This is the problem. I think you're absolutely right. And it should be a job that has real dignity and real status attached to it.
It's so important, and it's necessarily a growing industry, isn't it?
Well, it is an aging society, and actually more and more people live longer, and they live longer with greater needs. They have dementia, and people have to be looked after. And we now in the world, the post-pandemic world, health standards.
We've done strikes. We've done a union chief warning that there's going to be no end to the chaos. We've done having to recruit from abroad, and now we look into MPs' misconduct. Who's this?
This is the SNP MP who travelled back to her country when she had COVID.
Yes.
And it's a really interesting story because, unlike Boris Johnson and Rishi Sunak, who got fined by the Metropolitan Police, the investigation, and they look at it and then there's a fine. This is an MP who has denied any guilt until the very last moment, and when she went to trial, she's pled guilty. And what she's managed to do is keep the scandal away from the SNP. They suspended her but didn't force her to resign her seat. So she's sitting as an independent, whereas we know that if she'd been forced to resign her seat in a by-election, the SNP would have lost their seat in Scotland. So it's an interesting way about the SNP in Scotland they've had a lot of scandals, and what they do is they suspend their MPs, and then they suspend them from the party membership, but they don't take it any further. They don't have to resign as MPs or members of the Scottish Parliament. And I think it'll be interesting to see if this woman gets fined or gets a harsher sentence for wasting the court's time, in effect. Then will there be a by-election in Scotland? And that will be very...
Because this presumably would be a criminal charge under the COVID regulations. So, I mean, Parliament itself would actually have to take action then, presumably.
Well, there's definitely the Privileges Committee and suspension and then there's a whole process where if you're suspended, then there can be a petition against you. So it just seems it's a classic of one rule for one party, one rule for another.
It's shameless, though, isn't it?
Oh, it's shameless.
Because it was absolutely terrible what she did.
I know.
I think that's worth reiterating.
A church, a bar, 2 rail journeys, long distance rail journeys.
These were London to Glasgow rail journeys. Now, say what you like about Boris Johnson and the parties going on in Downing Street, but arguably with that, you were only infecting people who were already present in the building, and people who had, more to the point, consented themselves, presumably, to be in that building and be at that party. You make a long train journey like that, and knowing that you had COVID,
at a time when restrictions were at their toughest.
Okay.
And nobody's consented to sit on that train thinking that they're sitting next to somebody with COVID.
Yeah, and as they say, finally, rather than finally, sorry about that, the Finnish Prime Minister, who's been taking lessons from Michael Gove. Maybe remember Michael Gove disco dancing. Was it Dundee or Aberdeen?
It was in Aberdeen, and there's the Prime Minister's dancing at his own wedding celebrations. But this is a cool MP, a cool Prime Minister who dances really well, and the clips have now been released of her partying, and it's I think the best description of her. she's cool, and she's also hot. She's a very attractive Prime Minister.
Have we got the clip of her dancing? Yeah, hopefully. No, I think
No,
we'll
we'll
try and
just
get
imagine
that
it. We'll
because
try and get it.
maybe we ought to sort of contrast and compare Michael Gove and her
Well,
moves.
and Boris Johnson, I think Prime Minister to Prime Minister, but I think a great woman and a bit of fun.
What's horrible though is she does seem to be coming in for a bit of criticism for this.
Absolutely,
People
yeah.
saying this is not Prime Ministerial behaviour, and she should be acting sensibly all the time to kind of keep with the importance of the role that she's got. But do you know what? She's 36.
Yeah.
She's a young woman,
Yeah.
and it seems to me that Finland's done a very, very good job, really, over the course of the past couple of years. Negotiating their way through the pandemic without the restrictions, but also without some of the restrictions, but without the kind of high death tolls that we've seen in
And the whole issue of NATO and Russia as well.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, one thing I didn't realise was that Finland only became independent from Russia in 1917, and she's negotiated their way through all of this. I think she deserves a night out dancing.
Exactly.
I'm just being told that we've got another clip of another politician.
Lord. Just in case you're listening on the radio, this is one.
Boris Johnson trying to dance. I think he's obviously confused by the fact he's dancing on what appears to be a chessboard of white and black squares. So whether he's trying to stay on the white, I'm not sure what he's doing there.
And there's a lightsaber
But we
involved.
may sort of have a dance-off between Michael Gove, Boris Johnson and the Finnish Prime Minister. Who knows?
Well, it says nothing about their credibility as prime ministers, but I tell you what,
Or
though,
dancing.
aren't prime ministers getting younger?
They are
Just
getting,
it.
it's true, they're getting younger.
Astonishing, but there you are. We'll talk about that later.